The British Empire gets a bad rap these days. Thomas Sowell said that ours may be the first civilization destroyed not by the power of our enemies, but by the ignorance of our teachers and the dangerous nonsense that they are teaching our children. It's almost become popular to bash the westernized modern world. But in this video, I will aim to argue that in fact you have more to thank the British for than to hate them for. There is a mistaken concept advocated by the likes of Rousseau, which Douglas Murray summarises as this idea that white men stumbled into other countries and always discovered Eden and always effectively ruined Eden. As Simon Moyer Smith on Twitter recently wrote, before white people came to this land, there were no jails, no homelessness, no laws against homosexuality or abortion. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples emphasised health, housing, freedom to love who you love, and the fact that we need Mother Earth. She doesn't need us. Simon, maybe the reason that laws didn't discriminate is because there were no laws. Ironically, the very fact that someone like Simon has the right to say such uneducated and hateful vitriol is because they live in the freedom that the Western and the British world established for them. He can reach a large group of people with his ill-informed ideas because of capitalist innovations such as the smartphone and Twitter. We hear a lot of the evils of colonisation, and it would be unreasonable to say that the British are not responsible for the atrocities in the past. But British could be argued to have been somewhat the liberators of less civilised people through their colonisation. They brought with them Enlightenment ideals and set up basic human rights in places that they colonised. Religious and archaic ideals meant that people within places such as India, Africa, and the Middle East were treated with great prejudice. The British ideals of equality, individualism, and freedom opened these parts of the world to the more egalitarian and free societies. So here are some things that we can thank the British Empire for. Democracy. The ideals of democracy spread from Britain to the wider world. The British democratic system is the foundation for liberal democracies practiced by the free world today. USA, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and France are just a few. These civilizations would be governed by arbitrary and often authoritative rulers and rules without the right for the common man to choose their leaders. The ideals of the Enlightenment, founded in Judeo-Christian values, became significantly popular in Western Europe, including the British Empire, and these ideals spread throughout the world. British administrators and rulers were often on the side of the moral right, against these archaic and backward traditions. An example of this is the way the Brahmin leaders in India would burn widows. Sir Charles Napier insisted that to unjustly burn widows where he came from was a crime and that the murderers would be hung. After this, widow burning in India ceased to exist. Capitalism. British ideals of capitalism developed wealth and brought people out of poverty. Jordan Peterson says the only systems that seem to lift people out of absolute poverty are free market capitalist systems. Capitalism created a global market where new goods and innovative engineering, science, and medical knowledge improved the standard of living worldwide. British colonisers brought new understandings of sanitation and medicines, which saw the life expectancy of colonised areas significantly improve. First, to end slavery. Slavery has always existed. Hierarchies and discrimination have predated civilization. Every society throughout all of time have pitted groups against each other and created natural gaps between the rich and the poor, the advantaged and the disadvantaged. No civilization is perfect. Many think of the transatlantic slave trade as the only slavery to ever exist. But for many years, African, Middle Eastern, and European societies have enslaved each other. The British made the transatlantic slave trade illegal in 1807. America followed 30 years later. Not only did the British become the first nation to make slavery illegal, they pursued quelling it altogether with their West African squadron that patrolled the seas and liberated slaver ships, fining them for practicing slave trading in their waters. Thanks to the West African Squadron, 150,000 Africans were freed at sea. As Douglas Murray writes, you can, if you are so ideologically inclined, completely rewrite the history of the West, divorcing it from any proper understanding and certainly from any wider context. All in the hope of persuading the peoples of the West, not that they were better than anyone else, or that they were the same as anyone else, but that they were uniquely evil and therefore worse than everyone else. That the history of the West is especially shameful.